on this computer. Awesome. It is now recording. Perfect.
We are delighted to be
keep going, it's not showing.
okay. One of the things that drives us in terms of our motivation is the connection that, well, we can't be the to be without camp and retreat. We believe that if not,
Gary, your sound isn't coming through very clear.
I'm speaking into the microphone.
Okay.
You may have to hold the microphone.
All right. Is that clear?
Well, if you try to talk, you need to talk a bit and we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, I was just saying that for us, the thing that keeps us going is the conviction that the church God calls us to be without camp and retreat conference center ministries would be extremely limited.
As Joe mentioned, we're camp consultants. We work with folks in a wide array of projects. Most of what we do with folks fall under the category of master plan, which is and strategic planning. And so we're going to talk with you a little bit about that process and kind of how that works for a camp or retreat center. But a lot of this could apply to other forms of strategic planning. We hope this is really helpful for you. This is our basic premise that we share with folks about master planning. That master planning guides an organization in thoroughly examining its current and past operation, evaluating its effectiveness in light of its mission, setting significant goals for the future, and developing specific plans to achieve those goals. We are convinced the master plan allows the organization to accomplish more than it otherwise could, to optimize the use of its current resources, to make operational decisions which lead to strategic ends, and to increase future assets. And we're going to unpack kind of what we mean by all those things. We believe that a master plan allows an organization to accomplish more than it otherwise could, meaning that a master plan gives an organization a level of focus that really helps it accomplish more. It is able to more fulfill its mission in the context of a master plan. To optimize the use of current resources. We've never worked with a site that's not facing some significant limitations on its resources, whether those are financial resources or those are resources related to staff time. Most of us are not kind of sitting around with lots of extra time, staff. And so one of the things that's really important to us is to help a site really maximize the use of its resources. And that's one of the things that a master plan helps to do. Make operational decisions that lead to strategic ends. One of the things that's true about running a site is that we are called to make so many operational decisions on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. There's just all kinds of decisions that have to be made. And the goal is for those decisions to really get you closer to your strategic ends, to what it is you're trying to accomplish, to the impact that you're trying to have. And that a master plan well done should actually help you increase your future assets, meaning that it should help you increase the resources that you have for ministry.
As camp directors, we are often facing operational issues, and we make do, and we create workarounds. Master planning is about creating the preferred future and figuring out how to reach it in a manner that doesn't go from crisis to crisis, but looks at the long-term future.
Every camp person I know is really good at making do, or really good at figuring out how to make something happen. We're just folks that are good at that. And so managing is actually a time to sort of step outside that and say, this is not about making do. This is really about what our preferred future is, and how we're going to reach it. Here's the piece that maybe is most critical. People sometimes ask us about the difference between strategic planning and other kinds of planning. And this is probably the defining characteristic of strategic planning. Strategic planning is when you start with the end, meaning the first step in strategic planning is to have a really, really clear vision of some point in the future. And maybe that's 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but there's some point in the future, and the first goal is to create a really clear picture of that. And then we come back to the present and figure out how to get there from here. Strategic planning is different from incremental planning, and incremental planning is sort of, here's where we are and what can we do next. So in other words, if you were trying to cross a stream, incremental planning would say, here's the rock I'm standing on. What rocks can I reach from the rock I'm standing on? What can I do next? Where can I step next? Strategic planning is really about looking across the stream and getting a clear vision of the other side of the stream, and then saying, now, what's the best way to get from where I'm standing to where I want to be? And it might not be by rock hopping at all. It might be by building a bridge. And so that's one of the really critical things about strategic planning, is that we want a really clear understanding of the end. Yeah.
It's not that immediate problems are ignored in this process, but they function primarily to help us identify deeper issues. We often think in terms of the fact that in many ways, an iceberg, for example, has a small amount that's above the surface and a whole lot that's underneath. What we do is to move deeper and identify those underlying realities.
So we mentioned earlier that the goals of this process are to really help an organization examine its current and its past operation, and especially to evaluate its effectiveness in light of its mission. It's interesting. Oftentimes people will call us, and they call us because of some specific issue, and sometimes that's a financial issue, or sometimes that's a question about a building. But the real question is, how are we doing in terms of accomplishing our mission? And that's the fundamental driving question of all of strategic planning. And then we set significant goals for the future and develop specific plans to achieve those goals.
The process that's involved works its way through a number of different functions, and these, generally speaking, move from beginning to end. We begin with prayer, Bible study, and a deep understanding of the mission of the site. Early on, data is identified and analyzed. We also, early on, deal with the questions of critical issues, the concerns that don't seem to yield to solution, what are some of the significant opportunities that the ministry has. These are what we call critical issues. Pardon me. There's a time for creatively looking at options. And then, having done these things, we take a look at what may be the preliminary concepts of the plan itself. We define those concepts, bring them to the planning group, and test and see if they are the assumptions that the group holds. Find concepts are crafted, and an implementation plan is developed.
Master plan. This is kind of what you're looking to experience a renewal of your mission. Oftentimes sites say, this is our mission, and it's always been our mission, and it's going to be our mission going into the future. So there's a real renewal of that sense of mission. Sometimes that mission is changed or adjusted or shifted a little bit, but it should be deepened. You really want a plan that gives you a program development plan and a marketing plan and what's called an organizational capacity plan that helps you look at issues of governance and staffing and fund development and administration. All of those pieces accompany your site master plan, because the goal is for all of the dimensions of your ministry, of your organization, to all move in the same direction at about the same time. So like, you don't want to plan programs that then you don't have the buildings to house, or you don't want to build a building without having the marketing plan to fill the building. And so ideally, the results of a master plan are a comprehensive, integrated plan for your ministry. Lots of times people will ask us about outside help, literally about what we do. And obviously we think that there's a value for that. But some of the benefits to outside help are that an outside consultant can bring objective perspective. I was telling Joe that we were just on a site in Tennessee, and we had not seen this site before. This was our first time to visit the site. And one of the things that the site team said to us is, help us see what we're not seeing. And one of the really amazing things about this site is they have one of the, it's a really small site. They have one of the neatest parcels of land we have ever seen. They have the most amazing little parcel of land. And that was one of those things where they're so used to their parcel of land, they miss what's really, really neat about it. And so they're missing some of the potential of what they could do because they're not seeing their land with fresh eyes. In some areas, consultants can bring a higher level of expertise. There are some technical areas like program development, like data analysis and marketing. And outside folks can bring a higher level of expertise to a site. Maybe most importantly, if you work with outside help in a master plan, it allows your staff and board to participate fully in the process. Nobody has to worry about planning the process or running the process. If you have somebody else doing that, then everybody gets to participate. And finally, sometimes there are difficult issues to explore, and sometimes it can be really helpful to have some outside folks to help you with the difficult issues.
These are some of the questions that we often hear. Who should be on the planning team? Should it be just the board? Should there be different age groups? How do you determine who is a good member of a planning team who can do strategic thinking. Sometimes there's a process of hiring a new director that may be imminent. And so the question becomes, which should come first? Should we work on a master plan and then hire the new director? Or should we get the new director in place first before we start the master planning process? And there almost always are strategic, there are urgent matters that are not normally seen in the strategic context, excuse me. And so the question is, what should we do? We, facing a budget crunch, we have our main buildings, maybe the dining hall, has significant deferred maintenance, and it's affecting our ability to do our ministry. So those are some of the kinds of questions we hear.
We just have finished a report for a project that is a long-term strategic plan, but the first step in the long-term strategic plan was to figure out how to get the dining hall to stop leaking. They were running out of places to put buckets in the dining hall, so they had some really urgent matters that we needed to figure out, well before we finished the strategic plan. So if you were going to get started on a master planning process, these are some things that you can do. You don't need a consultant to do this. These are some things that you can do as you think toward that process. One of the most important things is to collect and tell your stories, especially the stories that convey when you are really at your best. In other words, those stories that convey, here's when we know we're doing the ministry that God has called us to do. Maybe those are stories of a staff person that realizes a call to ministry, or those are stories about a child that's facing a really difficult situation at home, or stories about a church that is deeply conflicted and they come on a retreat and they figure out how to stay together. If you can start to collect your stories, that will help you have a really firm foundation in your mission. You might begin by thinking about, who are you called to serve that you are not currently serving? And there might be a whole lot of reasons why you're not serving those folks. Maybe you're not serving those folks because you don't have room to serve those folks. Or maybe you're not serving those folks because you haven't figured out the marketing to serve those folks. But who is God calling you to serve that you are not currently serving? Start to identify some of your critical issues. Like Gary said, critical issues can be real opportunities that you have. They can be chronic challenges that you have. Maybe your budget is a chronic challenge. Maybe you wrestle with it every year. What creative ideas have you and your staff come up with? Or what future challenges do you think you might have? Sometimes folks can look down the road 5 or 10 years and say, boy, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to have to make a decision about, some building or some program, some staff need. And finally, work on your data collection. Data is one of the most important parts of a master plan. And sometimes we come into a process and folks have little or no data. And so one of the things that a site can do to prepare is to really begin to work on their data. And if you wanted to work on any of those things and you wanted to email us and say, hey, how do we do this? We're more than happy for you to send us a note. We can give you some ideas. But these are things that you can do that you can get started on.
So, be wise as serpents, as our Lord said. There are always issues of finances, property, buildings, staffing, and so on. And we have to attend to those. And said, be innocent as doves. That is to say, always looking to where God is calling us to go in our ministry. it is important, I think, that leadership in our camping works from both of these perspectives. You don't end up with both some people are raising the official questions and others are saying, yeah, but we're going to operate both, wise as serpents, innocent as doves.
We really appreciate this time to share with you all. We would like to answer any questions or, talk through anything that y'all would be interested in. You are always more than welcome to email us or call us just if you want to talk to us about anything. We're happy to do that. But if folks have some questions, Joe, we'd love to answer questions.
That is awesome. I can start off. If you have a question, you can feel free to unmute yourself and turn your video on so I can see you. And then, so one of the questions that came to mind, I didn't know how many of the camps that we've had have done something in the strategic plan or master planning. I know that at Pierce Williams, about 10 years ago, we did a site audit, which led to a visioning plan and a bunch of things, which was really helpful and we still use. But the question that first came to mind, Pam and Gary, was this idea of, what is the timeline from one strategic plan to another strategic plan, right? Like, yeah.
So typically, if a site does a full master plan that involves construction or major renovation of buildings, typically it's going to take a site 10 to 12 years to finish that. You can have strategic plans that don't involve major construction, but if buildings or you're doing major renovations, typically it's a 10 to 12 year kind of a plan. And so often it's fun. We've been doing this long enough that we have done some second master plans with sites. So we did initial master plans, and then about 12 years later, folks started calling us up to say, well, we did that, we're ready for our next master plan. So if it's a full master plan with site planning, the time between plans might be 10, 12 years. Within that 10 or 12 years, we typically recommend that folks at least revisit the plan about every 5 years, just to say, let's look back at what we thought we were going to be able to accomplish. Are we on track? Have we learned new information? Have things changed on us? So oftentimes at about the 5-year, 6-year mark, we'll often help a site kind of review its plan, maybe update it a little bit. If it's a plan that doesn't involve major construction, doesn't involve buildings or major renovation, then you're probably looking at about every 5 years in terms of program, marketing, governance, those kinds of dynamics.
Okay, that's great. Who else has a question out there? Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
You talked about data collection, and I'm wondering what kinds of data should we be gathering? Okay.
So usually we're looking for, first of all, financial data. And basically we're looking for profit and loss statements or revenue and expense statements and balance sheets. Sometimes camps have undergone changes in accounting or financial systems, and so sometimes financial information has either shifted or can be hard, but to the degree that there could be about 5 years of financial data, that's really helpful. Camper data, and when we talk about camper data, what we're mostly talking about is participants in like a summer camp program or other program that you would run. And we are often looking for campers, where they live. We often do a GIS analysis, meaning a We plot where campers come from, and there's sort of a lot you can learn about your camper population by plotting on a map where they come from. So some form of address, postal code information, age, gender, number of years they've been participating in the program. If they are affiliated with a church or come from a particular congregation, those are kinds of the basics that we tend to start with around campers. And guest groups. So these would be groups that you host at your facility. So with groups, we're typically looking for, again, some type of geographical location, like a postal code maybe of where the leader comes from. The dates that the group was on your site, like arrival date, departure date, the number of meals that the group had, the number of people that the group had, and then often we're looking for the affiliation, like were they a church group, or were they another nonprofit group, or were they a school group, and were they youth, adults, family group. Those are kinds of the basics. And if anybody wants that list, we'd be more than happy to send it out to you. We kind of have a standard list that we send to folks, and we say, here's the data that is ideal to work with. And so if anybody's interested, we can send you the list. But there's all kinds of analysis that you can do then from those basic building blocks.
That's awesome. A lot of that data, a lot of that data is available to us in our registration history, if you have it in a database that lets you get it. And that is really the trick for a lot of our camps who for years have stored data somewhere that isn't as searchable as we may hope. Feel it is.
So yeah, if you use like CampBrain, and I'll honestly tell you that CampBrain is just one of my favorite data systems, in part because I know that if somebody's using CampBrain, we can get to all of the data that we're going to want to get to. It's just, I know it's in there and we can get to it. If you track your campers in your group with spreadsheets, again, we have some stock forms, some stock spreadsheets that we'd be happy to share, to say, here's an example of how you might want to be tracking your groups, or how you might want to be tracking your campers. And here are some things that if you're not currently gathering this kind of information will serve you well in the future. So we're doing a project right now that they have not been tracking the number of people that come when it comes to their site. Like there's how many people came with the group. And that's a really fundamental piece of information. And so we're actually sort of through their contracts to say, how do we figure out how many people you had on your site while this group was on your site?
Yeah, that's good. Anybody else have a question? Let me know. Go ahead, Rick. Rick, we can't hear a thing out of you. I'm not sure where your speaker or your volume is at. Well, look at that. Oh, hey.
See if that works better. Is that better?
That's a bit better. Yep.
Okay. When doing a strategic plan with like a board of directors and that, what kind of timeline do you need, or how much time to pull something like that together? Is it like months, a weekend thing, several weekends?
Yeah, really
Good question.
Really good question. If it's a full master plan, meaning it also involves full site and facility planning, we typically tell folks it's a 6 to 9 month process. We work with groups. We tend to work with groups in a series of overnight retreats. And typically those about 4 different, and usually folks like to work together on weekends. So typically we work with folks on weekends. And for a full master site plan, we would typically schedule 4 weekends with the site. And ideally, so our ideal situation is for us to spend about a week on the site in the summer, just to watch the site work and to really get to know the ministry. So if we work with a site, typically we're on the site at least 5 times in the process. If it doesn't involve site and facility planning, it's a little bit of a shorter process. Typically, if it doesn't involve site and facility planning, we would work with a group over about 3 weekends. And typically that's about a 4 to 6 month process. So it takes some time to really explore the issues and to really think about different options and to really make some commitments to some directions. So yeah, it's a process that takes months.
That's excellent. I just want to make sure everybody is also reading the chat, because Sherry brings up a great point that in Alberta, you can have someone facilitate strategic planning through the government, and at no cost. And yeah, that's knowing the resources we have available to us is important as well.
Yeah. So one of the options is, so there are lots of folks that facilitate strategic planning. They don't necessarily have technical knowledge of camp. And so sometimes we have worked with folks like that. So we kind of bring in some of the technical pieces in terms of the data analysis and site planning and that kind of thing. But they bring in kind of the strategic planning process in terms of helping an organization set goals. So there is a little bit of technical knowledge that you may want to augment some of those processes with.
Yeah, the same would be true in terms of architectural support in the planning. If your architect has mostly done motels, guess what your buildings are going to look like? That may not be the most helpful configuration for your ministry.
Any other questions right now? Who, just with the people we can see on video, has anyone gone through a big site audit or strategic plan with their camp?
Hey, all right.
Cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I think that I think it's hugely valuable. Once upon a time, many years ago, I had a major funder who had more money, and I tried to get him to fund the idea that $35,000 to $50,000 for every camp that was within our area, because doing a site audit or a strategic plan with every camp would be the most valuable use of that money long term. And one of the things that I want to illustrate to everyone is that there are going to be people who fight the money you would spend on a strategic plan. I had a maintenance guy say, and this was 10 years ago, he said, for that money, we could put roofs on like 3 buildings. And I said, yes, but how do we know we're putting the roofs on the right buildings? And that is really long-term, the thinking you have to go through for a strategic plan.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and sometimes the fight is not even just about the financial. Sometimes it's even convincing people that we should probably look long-term.
Yes.
And not just do things as we've always done them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's a huge part, because as well, Janelle, as you know, as a minister, a lot of times churches, once they become, if you look at the church, once they become inward looking too much, it actually signifies the end of their time. And really, I loved what Pam and Gary said about, who are we not serving, right? Like who are we being called to serve that we're not serving? Yeah. Anybody else with a question out there? That is awesome. I just want to say that I think it's one of the most valuable things. We're blessed to have a board member who knows how to do a SOAR analysis. So not a SWOT analysis, but a SOARs, strengths, opportunities, blank, and outcomes. Outcomes and something. We're just in the middle of it now, but that's to go through, because after 10 years, I can see in a binder where our site audit is, but I literally look at it at least once a week to make decisions about something still, and it's almost 10 years old. That just
Wow.
goes over, it just goes over what we do and how we do things and everything we need to do. So this is awesome.
That's one of our goals. If we help a site do a plan, one of our, we joke about it, we say it's the dog-eared look. It's we hope that it's a plan that really does guide a lot of operational decisions, and that folks reference a lot. And say you can building, but you need to know if that building's going to be around for years or 50 years, and it makes a huge difference.
That's excellent. You're cutting out a little bit,
so,
Pam.
So we really valuable. Oops.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
was there another question? What I would like to do is I would like to thank Pam and Gary. You had some resources that you could make available, and if I think they can do is if you don't mind sending those to me, and if you're all right, we can post it on the wearecamp.ca resource page, so other people can find it there, and we can disseminate that information from there. Yeah, any final words?
Can't think of any. We're always happy to talk to camps. You know, honestly, even if you're not going to hire an outside consultant, we're always happy to talk to folks, and always happy to provide resources. And if you're going to the Great Gathering, we'll see you there.
Yeah. How many people here are going to the Great Gathering? You have a few.
Yes. All right.
Okay. So there's a bunch. That is great. Yep. So thank you to Pam and Gary. You can hang on the call. We're just going to talk about Outdoor Ministries Institute business. Matt, why not is up at this moment in time.
Thanks, Pam and Gary. Really appreciate it. Good to see you again. Take care.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, folks. Well, see you now. So now we are, first of all, well, I guess second of all, I do want to say that we have a lot of camps on the call tonight, which is amazing, and some new folks who've never come on board. So thank you so very much for being here. It's always great. It's always great that you come on these things. I just want to mention, I just kind of maybe go down the list if you haven't taken a look yet. So we have folks from Nova Scotia, bunch of folks from Ontario, out west, and into, anybody from BC here? Coolary, I think it's from BC, right? Yeah.
Coolary is BC,
so,
and Woodboya.
Lots of camps.
Woodboya is Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan. So I mean, this is really great, folks, and I think it speaks volumes to this idea that, you know, collectively when we come together, sharing ideas and doing this work is really important. So welcome to everybody, and we've got a few topics to discuss tonight, and so here we go. Joe.
First off, I'm not sure what discussion. My chat is really big right now. What am I discussing first? You tell me.
Oh, you want to talk about the bus from Ontario to the
Great. If you're in Ontario, and we in fact have out west people flying into London as well and getting on the bus going to the Great Gathering, and so I sent an email out today to people. We're trying to get to the 21 number. 21 gets us down to $450 a person. If we got to 25 people, it gets us down to like $375. And so the more people we get on the bus, the better. So it is, all of those details are online, and I emailed them out to all the Ontario United Church camps, as well as the Presbyterian camps. Now I say that, I realize I've forgotten 2 people in the Presbyterian camps, which is great, because that's 2 more people towards 25, which would be $375 a person. So if you want details on the bus, you can email me directly, and you can find registration at the Pierce Williams registration page. On our website, just go to register for anything, and it'll take you to our Camp Brain page. But that is the, no, I emailed the Presbyterian people. I'm all good. So that is the bus question. And if you are flying in from, if you want to fly in from somewhere just to get on the bus and go, we will do pickups and drop-offs at the London International Airport, not Toronto.
So, folks, some of this might be information that you've heard several times, but just to reiterate that this year would have been our sort of annual conference, United Church camps that we would typically call Camping Connections. This year, the United Church has agreed to pay some of those funds, help bring us together at this really awesome opportunity that no denomination could ever pull the types of speakers we have going to the gathering, that are speaking at the Great Gathering. So that is happening in November. There's still time to register if you have not done so yet. We're up to about 400 people on the planning team for the Great Gathering. So we're up to about 400 people. The goal reached to break even, which is awesome. So now we hope that there'll be a lot more folks who apply to go. So there's a bunch of us from United Church in Canada that are going down. And so we really hope and encourage people to register if they haven't done so yet. Joe asked that question earlier. Put your hands up if you're going. Absolutely 100% registered already. Great. And those of you who are thinking about going, possibly, maybe, there's even a spark, maybe, no, nothing. Okay. I believe, Joe, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was about 15, maybe 18 camps on the list of people that were approved through the United Church to receive funding.
I think so. Jordan would have that information, I believe.
Yeah.
And Jordan
says there was a good number of people.
Yeah. The plan is, if you are going to the Great Gathering, I know that you would have gotten an email about Tuesday and the free afternoon. The plan would be for Tuesday night for the United Church of Canada people to get together, because that would be one of the only times that we have to spend together. We also have that bus that we're taking down, we have at our disposal during the week as well. So on Tuesday, if we all decide to go to dinner somewhere as a group, because dinner's not included that night, we can go offsite for dinner as a group. So yeah, everything is good there. The other thing, couple of things we want to talk about is we need to hear from, there's 2 things, or many things. Let me write things down before. So Sherry brings up the point, does our national office have any trends analysis of United Church run camps? That is a great lead into the Outdoor Ministries Connection Director Survey of 2018, which I have right here. Just wait a second. Not that you're going to be able to read it, but I'll show you some of it now. And so the survey came through in the past couple of weeks. It came through to me, and I haven't posted it online yet. And we're waiting for a special thing that we get as the United Church of Canada. This lists all of the participating organizations, from United Methodist to Lutheran to Presbyterian to Episcopalian to the United Church of Christ, to the Church of the Brethren, and to the United Church of Canada. Down here a little bit, it shows that we had 24 of our 50 some odd camps fill out the survey last fall, which is great. That is a 3-time increase. We only had 8 camps fill it out in 2016. 8% of the camps in Canada 8% was from Eastern Canada of the overall fill out, and 3% was from Western Canada. This is information for Sherry and for everybody that I will post on the We Are Camp website. And I believe the last survey is up on the website as well. So you can start to see some of the analysis. And this goes over things like 21% of the camps that responded have, under 50 acres, and 12% have more than 500 acres. It goes over full-time employment. The 11% of the camps that answered have no full-time staff members, whereas 10% of the camps that answered employ 11 or more people full-time. And I was like, that is amazing. I have no idea who those people are or what those camps are. But all of this information will be available to us. Because we had 24 camps, we met the threshold to get our own data set, meaning that we'll take that group of 24 and he'll extrapolate that data and give us a United Church of Canada individualized report, which we're expecting by the end of September. And we will discuss on the next call in October. And so I will post, not only will I post this, but we'll email it out to our group as well to make sure that you can have it and look through it. It's a hugely valuable resource. Yeah. Great. I'm just looking at some of the questions that are coming in. So the one question is, can you explain how the United Church is supporting the Great Gathering? What they've done is they've offered a $500 bursary to any United Church camp person who wants to go. And although the deadline has come and gone for that, we are still sending people and people are still getting funds. And so there's the $500 there. And if you use a Vision Fund, there's another $500 available, or $1,000 per camp is available. And so you access that by email. You can email Jordan directly, or you can email Matt or myself, and we can help you get in touch with those things. And as for, I think what you're asking here, Cher, is an online opportunity, an opportunity to offer online connection for the evening gathering that Tuesday. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know what the internet connection is like in North Carolina. I have no idea. I do know that we have to pay for everything as a Outdoor Ministries connection, which is a parent organization. So if I am a speaker and I want a screen, I need to pay for the screen and the projector separately, which is sort of weird. I just want a screen, no projector. That would be awesome. So we're bringing down our own projectors.
Or better yet, just a projector and a wall. Forget just paying for the screen.
Yeah. Who knows? It's great. Yeah, and we know that it also happens that there's other things that happen at that same time, like Robin said, another conference, and so be it. One of the things that we're doing, Matt and I are reapplying to the Edge network. Do you want to talk a bit about that, Matt?
Yeah, sure. So just so you folks, just so you know that this idea came of series of conversations. So these monthly meetings have unfolded because of original conversations about a year and a half. We as a group we on your behalf applied to the Edge Network and United Church of Canada Foundation, received a seed money to help organize some of these calls, for us to visit some camps, to talk to them about coming on these, to go to the Great Gathering, other opportunities, that type of thing. Our funding, we have another opportunity to apply for more funding, which is quite a little bit more significant, and we are being encouraged to do this through our networks, through the church, but also through the foundation, of quite a significant amount of money so that we can offer more support to our camps, whether that's more of these types of gatherings, maybe, this idea, we have this idea of, folks are, for instance, in full-time camping ministry. Maybe there's a time that we can gather outside of this, that we can talk about how to support one another, so that we're not, at my camp, I'm full-time year-round, but I'm by myself, right? And I talk to my wife about being by myself all the time. But you're in a unique situation. And so how do we support one another? How do we support one another in that ministry? So there are a bunch of different ideas that we've been having. One of them is, in particular, I think has been very beneficial, is these face-to-face meetings that we've been having. So Joe and I and our friend from the Presbyterian Church last year visited a bunch of camps in Ontario. And some of you would know that we were there. This year we visited all of our United Church camps in the Atlantic area, and so these are really important opportunities to talk about this. And there are camps on here tonight. They are here because of the work that we've done to go out and connect with these camps. So moral of the story, we're going to apply for more money, and hopefully we will be able to support you more effectively. Hey,
that is the plan.
The camps that we went to.
I wanted to share that I created a map, and we'll put a link to this up on the website. But what you're looking at is all of the United Church camps in Canada. I was saying earlier to Janelle that I knew Woodboya was somewhere because I'd put it in, and it sits over here. We've done these face-to-face tours in Tawassee and Kidston, who are on the line tonight. That is awesome that you guys are here. We had one of the most welcoming groups of people I've ever met when we were in Newfoundland. The 3 camps in Newfoundland, I think they just have felt forgotten for years, and it was a long ferry ride to get there, but well worth it. And then the other thing is that this is something we might do next year. See, Woodboya is on this list, Janelle. This is a potential route for us to take next year, or one of us to take on a week-long camp tour, just to get to camps and to talk to people and to share this idea of connection and networking. And so I'm not sure, Matt, if you think a small survey would be helpful with feedback. So like a Google form that we could just have people fill out 1 or 2 questions to talk about the value they find in this. I assume people find value in this. Yeah, we don't need.
Well, people keep coming back. So
people keep coming back. That's great. Awesome. Yeah.
I think that's it.
The name of this is the Outdoor Ministries Institute, which is what we came up with. And so when we go to somewhere like the Great Gathering, we're known as the United Church of Canada Outdoor Ministries Institute, because there is a United Church of Christ in the States that is still UCC and gets us confused. I think bus, Great Gathering. Next topic, that's the only thing. Next month, we'll be discussing the Outdoor Ministry survey data and dive into the meaning for that as camps. And so we'll email that out. And if you guys all spend 10 or 15 minutes with it to ask questions and sort of figure out what it means for us as camps going forward. In November, we'll have an in-person meeting at Relationship, Canadians in North Carolina. And if you're not there, we'll try and figure out if we can do, I'll see how much data I have left on my phone at that point, and we could host people and go from there. As for on that same survey that we'll send out for feedback, we'll also ask for some topics. I have some topics listed going forward: camp promotion and camper recruitment, new director's perspective and reflection. But if we don't, I'm not overly committed to those topics if we don't if we don't like them. So we'll do a Google form and get that out over the next week or so for people to give us feedback so that we can apply for more money to keep doing this and keep connecting, because we know it can be lonely if your wife doesn't care, Matt, but we know it can be lonely if you're the only person at camp. That's great. Are there any quick questions to close? It is 8:30 and we love respecting people's time.
Just a quick question. When is the next meeting?
The next meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 21st, which is a bit later because of Thanksgiving. I believe that's the reason we did that.
Also, I don't know if it automatically happened when I signed up, but can you add me to your mailing list either instead of or in addition to the board secretary for Woodboya, please?
Yeah, and what I would encourage, if anybody here is on a board, or is a board member, I would encourage that you add everybody on your board to our list. And the reason I say that, we had a great experience at, what was that camp on the... Rock Haven? West Haven. So we showed up at West Haven and we met the chair and had been talking with him, and he was great. But he was like, the great gathering, we can't really do that. And what I loved is that we actually met the board that night and they said, oh, well, if the United Church is giving money and I have air miles on my card, like for sure I can get to North Carolina. And 2 or 3 people were interested at that point. So you never know who on your board might be interested in something we say or something we do. And this meeting is, we can have as many people as possible. It doesn't really, any bandwidth issues are only coming from independent bandwidths because it's being hosted by Zoom somewhere not here. But that's a great question, Janelle. Yes, and if you've signed up for the meeting, I believe your email will be moved over to the email newsletter.
Perfect, thank you. Sometimes I think it kind of just comes in and it's an automatic, oh, we don't need to worry about that until it got brought up at a meeting. And I said, well, actually, that might be something interesting.
Yeah.
I'd like to go.
Yeah. As we all know, and if we work in church and we work at camp, sometimes we get folks who are the gatekeepers of all those things.
Okay.
The information is not disseminated.
That is awesome. If there's no other questions, the standard, Janelle, I believe the standard that we're trying to set for dates is the second Monday of each month.
With the exception of next month, because that is Thanksgiving.
That is Thanksgiving. And it's
November, always at the same time?
Yes, and we are, so that was set 7:30 Eastern time, which means it is, I have no idea what time Saskatchewan is on, because
5:30 for me until Ontario changes its time, and then we don't change, so that
I know.
It's me crazy for talking to my folks in Ontario.
That is great. Okay. Are there any other questions before we go? Dan and Samantha, if you guys can stay on the line for a minute, that'd be awesome. But thank you. Yes, Matt?
Nope, go.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. You can sign off. Have a great week. Good to see you all. Doug, look into the bus. I sent that information out. I think you were on it.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm likely coming that way.
Yeah. If we get, as soon as we get above 20, you can't get a flight. And all I'm doing is drinking a bottle of ZQL and going to bed. So that's awesome.
It won't just be drinking a bottle.
No. Well, I think they look down on that. So ZQL's allowed. Scotch is not.
Okay.
Talk
to you later.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks, Doug. What? Dan, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
We might know that the bus driver might be the guy that we bought the camp bought land from a few years ago.
Ah.
I was talking to him at the farm show, and I forgot he drives bus for Batter. Now he drives out of the St. Thomas Yard, and he was telling me how he just did like a big trip to Kentucky. I said, "Oh, you're going to North Carolina in November?" He said, "Well, I haven't been scheduled yet, but maybe."
Yeah.
He's a simple man.
That'll be fine. So Samantha, you're not going? No?
Our contracts aren't going great, right? We've got a strike about the end of September, and it looks like the CUPE they're going to be ahead of us in the strike, so it's all up in the air. There'd be no way my principal would sign off on a week.
And she's still have to lose salary, pay a supply, and pay into pension.
Yep.
So it becomes a very expensive week.
Yeah.
But Shane McDowell's going.
For Kennesari?
Yeah, he's the chair of the board right now.
That's awesome. Convince him to take the bus.
I sent him an email during this meeting.
Because once you get down to that number, like 375 would be amazing.
Yeah, 433 was the cheapest flight I found, and then the $50 for the shop.
Yeah, but
it is a shorter travel day.
It's a slightly shorter travel day.
I'm great. I'm okay. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Dan, I sent you an email from the Lower Thames, and I think
I read that report last week.
Okay. What is the 100-year erosion allowance?
I forget. It depends where you are, and it doesn't mean you can't have things in that. You just can't build new things in that zone.
Yeah.
So if we were to go move cabin 11, 12, we might not be able to move it a short distance if we had to do that again.
Like my thought was, I don't know even what that distance is. I thought there's no way you could build anything this side of the bathrooms.
Well, just a 3-to-1 ratio on its own. If say it's a 60-foot cliff, which is 18 meters. So 18 times 3 is 54 meters.
Oh yeah, you're already
in that zone. The bathrooms are in that zone. Now that's not the slope is unstable. That's just where they won't let you develop in them because of future issues.
Huh.
And I did some mental calculations last week. Well,
Well, yeah, you're building nothing. So just build nothing the cliff side of the pool.
That's right.
That's awesome. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And sorry, so her husband passed away due to anaphylactic shock?
Stung by a bee, went into anaphylactic shock, induced coma while they tried to get swelling down in his body, and it didn't work. There was there was very little brain function showing. And like Colleen and Jason and Sean and Tanya, they're like best friends. Like Jason was Sean's best man, and I think that they introduced Colleen and Jason to each other.
How old are their kids?
10 and 12 maybe. They're young.
That sucks.
He was 40, like he's same age as you, because he's same age as Sean.
Yeah.
And then Colleen, was she your age, a year younger, or 2 years younger?
I think Colleen's 2 years younger, and Sean's a year younger than me. So
I thought Sean was your age.
No.
You're younger?
So.
Okay. And then, Colleen was a year or two older than Kim and Kathy.
Yeah.
Those are our sisters, in case you're wondering, Joe.
Matt. Oh, our sisters. Yes. Hey, I watched our niece on YouTube the other day.
I was watching it at work on an old square screen, so we went full screen. I couldn't see them.
Our niece Matt was on the first ride of the train in Ottawa, the LRT in Ottawa.
She named cars. The Majestic Moose is her car.
The which moose?
Majestic Moose.
That's awesome.
That's
okay.
her car that she named.
I'm going to go. I have to be on a Zoom room for an interview. Sorry, did you need to talk, Matt?
That's why I wanted to stay on. Yeah, I don't really care about. Well, I do care about all those things.
Okay, Dennis Smith.
I'm leaving since he says he doesn't care. Goodbye. Nice to see you. Suck it.
Bye. Love
Suck
you guys.
Suck it.
This is still being recorded, just so you know.